Hey everyone, it's Al. I'm the founder of Simply Wall Street, and today I'm going to take you through our discovery views and our stock screener. Before I start, just want to remind you guys that we are here to help you make better investing decisions. We are not here to make those decisions for you, and we don't make stock recommendations. Our analysis is here to save you time and to help you make consistent, unbiased, unemotional decisions, so that you can stick to the fundamentals of a business. Let's dive into it. Now, actually, the easiest way to screen for stocks is not to use the screener at all, and is to start off in our investing ideas section, or as we call it, discover. What we've done here is we've actually curated pre-made screeners for you based on what we know are some very common and popular things that people like to screen for. So if you go into the Discover tab, you'll find the investing ideas. And there's a lot of them. So I'm not going to go through them all today, but each of these, I can then click on them, and I'll look at some in a bit, click on them, and we'll see a list of stocks based on the criteria. So the one I'm actually going to start with is just one on the top, which would be forecast high growth. So I click on that. And this is a pre-made screen, and as you can probably guess, what we're using here is we're using our Snowflake. So we're using that future growth axis of our Snowflake, and we're looking for companies that are scoring well based on those checks. And if you look at my other video, that you'll know that that is based on analyst forecasts, so what the companies are forecast to do in the next 3 to 5 years. Some important things on this screen, just to keep things simple, is you can change the market. I think I've mentioned before that we cover every stock in the world. So of course you can start with the market that you're in, but if you have the ability to invest overseas, then this is a really powerful way of looking for stocks in different markets. So for example here, I've just changed the view to be in India. Going back to the US, the other thing I can do is, oh yeah, almost forgot. You can choose global as well, so you can just go full global if you want. You don't have to choose a market at all. But we can also choose industries. So if I wanted to say only find high growth, for example, let's find something exciting. Media stocks. There might be none. Oh no, there are some. So high growth media stocks in the US, then I can just use these drop downs to screen for that. So I don't even need to go into the screener, which we'll talk about in a bit, to do those kind of basic screens. And that will work for any of those pre-made Discover views. From here, if I wanted to, I can actually just click Edit in Screener. And what that will take me to is that view that I just had in Discover, but already with the criteria entered in Screener. And you can actually see here, not surprisingly, the market is the United States, the industry was media, and this was a snowflake shape that I was filtering for. We'll talk about sorting in a bit, but you'll actually notice that that view had a slightly different sorting order to default. We'll cover that later. I'm going to reset this view, and we're going to go make a screen from scratch. So to do that, I just click Reset. OK, so now that I've reset the view, what we'll actually see here is we're now having to choose our filters in our screen. So we're going to work left to right, and we're going to add in some filters. Before I add anything, the first thing I want to point out is the number of results here. Now, we haven't applied any filters, or have we? But we haven't applied any default filters. And what we can see here is that this is yielding 47,000 results. And remember, this is across everywhere in the world. The one filter that's been applied by default here is this one, which is called Hide Secondary Listings, which usually is fine to keep off. But you'll notice that if I go here and I switch that off, that number will actually increase to 77,000. But what you can see now is multiple listings of the same company, which is very common, especially larger companies are listed on many markets. So if your market does have a lot of secondary listings, then it might be worth turning on secondary to show up some of those results. So that's something that you can play with. I'm actually going to put that back on so that the results that we see are not duplicated for different companies. Now the first one I'm going to add, in a similar way to that I did earlier, we're going to add a market. The difference in the screener is I'm not only adding a market, but I can actually also add an exchange if I wanted to. In some countries, like in the US, you actually have quite a number of different exchanges. In some countries like Australia, we have primarily one exchange. So, for example, I could say I only want to see stocks on the AIM market in London, and I could apply that. Right, that's roughly 700 companies. For the sake of this, I'm actually going to use the US market to start off with. So I'm just going to tick US and click done. So now we're filtering for all of these different exchanges that are on the US market. You notice at the bottom we include OTC, which is quite powerful if you're able to trade that exchange on your broker. So we've got the US market. We can see that there's roughly 9,000 companies there. And let's add an industry. This industry list, unlike the last one, is a lot more detailed. And so I can scroll the list if I want, but I can also just search for certain stocks. So let's say I search for auto, and in this screen, we are going to look for automobile manufacturers. Click done, and what are we finding? We're finding 20 automobile manufacturers listed in the US. Okay, so most of these are brands that you'd probably recognize. If I wanted more companies than that, because 20 is actually not that many, what I could do is I could also go back to here, and I could actually include, say, automobile parts and equipment, if I believe that those are also interesting to me. Now I'm seeing 90 companies. Okay, if I'm still thinking, that's not quite enough, I could actually say, why don't we add one other market that may have a lot of car manufacturers? Let's say I want to add Germany. Okay, now I'm seeing 100 companies, so that might be a good start for my screen. And the easiest way generally to screen is actually just to use the Snowflake. And once you understand the checks that are behind that Snowflake, you understand that it's actually quite powerful, especially because it's not prescriptive in terms of you can be awarded a score for different reasons. But let's say that I want to look for reasonably healthy automobile stocks, but I also want some that are going to grow in the future. Okay. Update that. So now we can see that this is yielding 16 results. So we already went from 90 down to 16 just from applying that very basic screen. You've got Tesla at the top, but we've also got quite a lot of other companies here, and I can already tell that some of them are definitely listed in Germany. Whilst I'm on here, this is a really powerful way also to manage your screeners, is to change the order by. Sometimes you don't necessarily want to add a specific criteria to your screen, but the order by is actually really powerful. At the moment I'm ordering by market cap, right? But let's say, okay, I want to actually increase the number of companies. I'm being a bit less picky for now. So now I'm going to see more companies, 31. Let's say actually instead I want to order by, for example, let's say debt to equity ratio. So actually I'm going to start, I don't know why I'd want the high ones first. I probably wouldn't. I'd probably want the low ones first. So I'm going to start with the companies with the least debt first. Okay, so the order by is quite powerful because it's not a criteria as such, but allows you to do that ordering. I can also use specific criteria from within the company report, and this is quite useful as well. Simple one would be market cap. For example, if I only want to have, say, smaller companies show up, I can do that. That's obviously really starting to restrict my results quite a bit. But you can add any of the metrics here that you can see in the company report. For example, I might say I only want companies that don't pay a dividend because I want companies that are reinvesting in growth. So I might switch dividend to be 0. So I'm forcing it to only be companies that don't pay a dividend. And now we're left with only 6 companies that have actually passed all of those checks that I just added in earlier. And to finish it off, I'm going to save it. Obviously that could be useful. I might want to return to it later. What can we call this? Let's call this no dividend auto stocks. Okay, confirm that. And if I wanted to find that again, I can just find my save screeners up here in this corner. And I think we'll leave it there for now. So happy screener creation and happy investing.